let's talk about making friends with Jake. Jake, what's the topic? What are we going to be talking about today? In your own words.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I was thinking about the differences in the relationships, the friendships that are forged either through cooperation or competition. And this sort of rose out of my growing love for my friends who I met through game night, which is all about competition, or at least that's what I thought when I began this.
Right.
I was thinking that many of my friendships are about mutual experiences, shared experiences, things that we both like, things that we can do together. You go to the movies together, whatever it might be. And those are all about sort of cooperation. You're working together to have a good time. You find things that you like to do together.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a totally fine way to make friends. In fact, I think a lot of the childish kind of friends that we make when we're younger is all about what games can we do together? What things can we do together that we can make together? And as you get older, I think you start to learn that there is a great value in the relationships that revolve around competition, because you're challenging yourselves, and that challenge not only tells you something about yourself, but it tells you about something about the person you're competing with. And I was thinking a lot about the games we play that sort of either are competitive or cooperative. And this is something that we had discussed offline beforehand, Tom, about good examples. And the first one that came to mind when we were talking was the Battlestar Galactica, which, if I remember correctly, was the first game I had ever played of Euros at all, with the group at all, which is a bit of a cooperative game.
Oh, yeah. That was the game that I came over. That was the first time I met you, and the first time that I met Matt, and I came over to sort of run that game with you guys.
That was the first teach I'd ever gotten, which was from you, which remains my one of my very fondest memories of being part of this group. It's just interesting to me, and I was thinking a lot about this, and I'm realizing that competition in our scenario is actually cooperation, because we all agree to come together to compete. It's not like we're out on the street and some guy pulls a knife and now you got to fight. That's something that would be hard to make a friendship based on.
Well,
but
that's
because we
the problem
agree
with
to
Paul.
come together. Yeah. I was just saying, I'm curious to see what your opinion is on the idea that while we are competing, it's really cooperation at its heart, because we're agreeing to compete.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're agreeing to compete. We're agreeing to get together at this time. We're agreeing to play this particular game, and there's oftentimes a lot of disagreement before we find agreement as to what game we're going to play on a given night. We're agreeing to play by the rules, and there's a lot of negotiation that goes even into the game of the meta of the game. It's like, well, I really want to do this, and somebody is, like, please don't do that. If you don't do that, I will do something for you later. And like, well, there's nothing in the game saying that if I don't do this, that you have to do this for me later. So do I trust you? And where does that come in? So yeah, it is a constantly negotiated cooperative experience, right?
I completely agree. There's something very meaningful to me about being able to compete without the pressure of outcome, which normally is huge in a competition. And I know I might be alone in that in our group. I know some of us care a lot more about winning than others. I think, probably like Dimitri is on my side of the fence on this one, where the experience itself is more valuable than the outcome.
Yeah.
And, it varies amongst us. It's the friendships I make in my adult life have mostly been through being pushed by the other person, whether that's competition or, any kind of, even in discussion, discussion can often start off as like, well, how are we different? What do we disagree about? And those disagreements can lead to the more interesting discussions, I find.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something that my wife has talked about in the past. I'm not sure where she read this, but I think it was some form of psychology book or self help book or something along those lines, where it's a generalization, but there is some truth to it, as most generalizations have, which is that women tend to experience intimacy through shared communication, and men tend to experience intimacy through shared activity. So women like face to face, and men like shoulder to shoulder. Like,
Right.
And maybe there's now listen, we have women in our game group that love the shoulder to shoulder and all that sort of stuff. So I don't think it holds true in that sense, but I do think what that does point out is that shared experiences and the cooperation of doing those things together is in itself a bonding thing, even if nothing deep was discussed, right? It's like there's there's the unspoken that happens there that just bonds you.
And, I was thinking something else you said also before the podcast about the difference in the games versus straight competition. I find that I'm the kind of person who definitely appreciates the co-ops better. And I think maybe that's just because I have less invested in the outcome, and I kind of want everybody to be happy. Like, I'm a pleaser by nature. So if it's a competitive game, I'm almost more happy to lose and other people be happy. But in a co-op game, we all win if we work together. I don't know if others out there can, really appreciate that, but I like those games the most, I think, really.
Yeah, I mean, Maddie can't stand a cooperative game. If somebody isn't losing, if somebody isn't crying at the table, Maddie has no interest in playing it. I don't actually think that's it, but he doesn't like co-ops. It's true. Me personally, the semi co-op is my sweet spot. So Battlestar Galactica, where we all started off, or where some of us, or the core of this group started off in that, is great because you are both trying to win against somebody that is desperately trying to stop you from winning. And in order to do that, we have to combine and work together. And we can't just work together just right off the bat. First, we have to figure out who has earned our trust, who is lying to us and who is not,
yes,
and where does that fall in? Which is why we have
another game that comes to mind. Is the Avalon that some of us love and some of us do not. There's not a lot of team games that we play. It's almost always every man for himself. And of course, by man, I mean player.
Correct.
But that's one of the games where, that team element gives you the cooperation, but the competition is still very much a part.
Yeah, and it's a 2-team game in which only one team knows what the teams are, which is wonderful design, right? And everyone is trying to pretend to be on the same team. Yeah, there truly is nothing as great as the best game of Avalon. There's nothing as bad as the worst game of Avalon, so that's also true. But yeah, I mean, just I can remember times when you have been just elated at the end of an Avalon game when you figured something out and your hunches were right and you got people to trust each other, right? I can picture the smile on your face having done that. It was like it was like you were coming off the pitch after a soccer game, victorious.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I don't have a whole much more on that subject. I'll admit most of my focus has been on not getting COVID.
Dude,
but
that's great.
It's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm curious what our listeners think. Perhaps they'll chime in later in their emails whether they prefer one or the other or what they think about that.
I think we could say that Pandemic is enjoying a resurgence in the pandemic. A lot of people are playing it. A lot of people that have never played it before. A lot of people are writing think pieces about it and what it teaches. It is a very good cooperative game that everybody should play, and Pandemic Legacy is an incredible story that is being told within that game as well. Highly recommend that people try that out.
these days, nothing is more important than if we could all be cooperative.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way we're getting out of this if we can't all start working together and doing the things that are good, not only for ourselves, but for, our neighbors and the rest of the world.
So true. So true. And listen, your wife and my wife like Tichu, because Tichu is both cooperative and competitive, but it is cooperative with your partner. And I know I know for my wife, it is a testament to the strength of our marriage to some degree. It's not really, but but psychologically, there's a little something to that. Like, my husband and I work well together. We communicate. We sacrifice for each other, right? We do what is necessary for the best of the team, and we're winning because of that. And there's something affirming about that, right? I think that fits into what you're talking about as well.
Absolutely. I would posit that every good relationship has a little bit of both components, a little bit of cooperation, a little bit of competition.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my wife told me a long time ago that, listen, go out there and compete with everybody else. Don't compete with me. I don't like it. I don't dig it.
Right.
Don't like it. Don't care for it. Stop doing it. And I like to think I'm a pretty smart guy, but
I do too. Yeah.
I'm really not a very smart guy, because that is a lesson I have to keep learning. I mean, just have to bash my head against the wall again and again and again. I think I've gotten better at that over time, but boy, she has had to be very patient with her husband, because
I think the roles are a little reversed in mine, whereas I often find myself saying, same team.
There you go.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
That's the conversation, right?
That is.
And that's the way it is.
We push each other to make each other better, but at the end of the day, same team.
Exactly. That's fantastic. Jake, that's really, really great.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.